The scream tore through the peaceful Sunday morning air in Malibu, California. The sound echoed from a penthouse overlooking the Pacific Ocean, where waves were gently lapping against the white sandy shore. But inside this luxurious home, death was lurking. When the LAPD squad arrived, they found Marcus Johnson, a 28-year-old black aerospace engineer, dead in the living room with a deep stab wound straight to the heart. Blood had congealed on the expensive hardwood floor, forming a dark pool around the lifeless body. But the strangest thing wasn't his death, but the suicide note written in Marcus's own hand, lying beside the corpse. A letter confessing to deliberately infecting 2 women with HIV. The problem was, Marcus had died before finishing the letter. The final handwriting was still wet with ink, but his right arm had been stiff for hours. Detective Maria Santos, a 38-year-old Mexican-American woman with sharp eyes that had witnessed too much crime, looked down at the scene with unease. In her 15 years on the force, she'd learned one thing: when everything looks too clear-cut, it usually isn't. "Who discovered the body?" Maria asked her colleague. "Diana Johnson, the victim's wife. She just got off her night shift at Cedars-Sinai Hospital," Officer Rodriguez replied. "And there's also the victim's mother-in-law, Rosa Martinez. Both are in severe shock." Maria looked around the room. Everything was perfect, too perfect. No signs of struggle, no broken objects, just Marcus lying neatly on the Persian rug, as if he had chosen his position to die. But there was one detail that caught Maria's attention: the faint scent of insulin in the air. She'd smelled this before when investigating the death of a diabetic patient last year. Marcus wasn't diabetic according to his medical records, so why was there an insulin smell? Marcus Johnson had once been his family's pride, rising from an Oakland ghetto to become an aerospace engineer for SpaceX. His success story was proof of the American dream, but behind the perfect facade was a man full of contradictions and pain. Born into a poor black family, Marcus had to overcome countless barriers to achieve success. He graduated MIT summa cum laude, but from his first day at SpaceX, he felt the suspicious glances from his white colleagues. "Probably a diversity hire," he'd heard whispered behind his back. "They need more black people to fill their quota." Those comments were like knives stabbing at Marcus's self-respect. He had to work twice as hard as others to prove he deserved to be there. Every project, every report, every meeting was a battle for recognition. His wife, Diana Martinez, 26, was a Mexican-American nurse working at Cedars-Sinai Medical Center. They met in a Spanish class Marcus took to expand multicultural communication skills as required by his company. Diana was attracted to Marcus's intelligence and determination, while he loved her for her sincerity and kindness. They had been married for 3 years, but work pressure and Diana's constant night shifts had created an ever-widening gap between them. Marcus often had to stay at the office until late at night, not because of workload, but because he needed to prove he was more committed than his white colleagues. The $2.5 million penthouse in Malibu was the result of 6 years of non-stop work. From the balcony, Marcus could see the entire coastline from Santa Monica to Ventura. This was the symbol of success he had dreamed of since childhood. But success came with a price. Marcus began feeling lonely, even when with his wife. Diana was always exhausted after long shifts, while he was haunted by the fear that someday he'd be discovered as unworthy of his current position. Everything started changing one night in June 2023 when Diana received an emergency call from the hospital. An HIV-positive patient in a psychotic episode had attacked another nurse. Diana, with her instinct to help, had rushed to intervene without having time to prepare adequate protective equipment. "I got pricked by a needle," Diana sobbed when she called Marcus. "Honey, I'm so scared. What if—" Marcus drove like a madman to get to the hospital. He held Diana in his arms, feeling her trembling. Initial tests came back negative, but the doctor explained about the danger window, the 3-month period when the virus might not be detectable yet. "We'll have to wait and test again," the doctor said. "During this time, it's best to avoid unsafe sexual contact." The 3 months of waiting felt like 3 centuries for both spouses. Diana became anxious, often crying at night. Marcus tried to comfort his wife, but inside, he was also filled with fear. If Diana contracted HIV, their perfect life would shatter. It was during Diana's anxiety about possibly contracting HIV that Marcus began his first secret affairs. It wasn't the result of a calculated decision, but an explosion of emotions that had been suppressed too long. Loneliness, pressure, and a craving for validation from outside his marriage. Ashley Thompson, 22, was a white girl with flowing blonde hair and crystal-clear blue eyes like the California sky. She worked at Whole Foods in Beverly Hills, where Marcus regularly shopped for organic food for his family. The first time Marcus noticed Ashley was on a late June afternoon. She was standing at the checkout counter, wearing the standard green uniform shirt, but her natural beauty made her stand out in the fluorescent-lit space. "Hi, do you have a membership card?" Ashley asked with her gentle voice, her cheeks blushing when she saw Marcus. "Yes," Marcus replied, unable to take his eyes off her face. There was something about Ashley that made him feel noticed in a way he'd never experienced. Not attention based on achievements or social status, but pure admiration from a young, beautiful woman. Over the following weeks, Marcus began shopping more frequently, always choosing Ashley's line to check out. They chatted about small things, weather, organic food, weekends. Ashley gradually shared about her life. "I'm studying at Santa Monica College," she said one day, "psychology major. I want to become a counselor to help kids from difficult backgrounds." Marcus learned that Ashley lived with her grandmother after her parents died in a car accident when she was 18. She had to work part-time to pay for tuition and living expenses. Life wasn't easy, but Ashley always maintained her smile and optimistic attitude. What attracted Marcus most about Ashley wasn't just her beauty, but the way she looked at him. In Ashley's eyes, Marcus wasn't the black engineer hired for diversity policy, but a successful, attractive man worthy of admiration. "You're amazing," Ashley once said when Marcus told her about his work at SpaceX. "I can't imagine how complex designing spacecraft must be." Those compliments were like opium to Marcus. After long days of having to prove himself in a hostile work environment, being looked at by Ashley with admiring eyes was an intoxicating feeling. Their first date happened on a late July evening. Marcus told Diana he had to attend a company networking event. Instead, he took Ashley to a seafood restaurant at Santa Monica Pier. Ashley wore a small floral dress, her hair flowing naturally. She looked young and innocent, completely different from Diana, who had become tired and aged beyond her years due to work pressure. "I've never been to such an elegant restaurant," Ashley confessed, looking around the sophisticated space with flickering candlelight. "You deserve the best things," Marcus said, placing his hand over hers on the table. They talked about dreams, about the future. Ashley shared about her painful past, losing her parents, the loneliness of having to be independent too early. Marcus felt a deep connection with this girl, as if they were both people who had had to overcome difficulties to survive. But there was one thing Marcus didn't share with Ashley. He was married. He said he was in the middle of a complicated relationship and needed time to resolve it. Ashley, with the naivety of 22, trusted Marcus completely. She didn't question why he could only meet her at certain times, didn't ask why he never invited her to his home. Their relationship quickly became passionate. Marcus rented a small apartment in Venice Beach as a private place for them. This was where he could temporarily forget work pressure, forget worrying about Diana's health condition, forget everything that made him feel strangled in real life. Ashley loved Marcus with all her young heart. She believed he was the man of her life, someone who would marry her and build a happy family. Marcus, despite knowing he was lying, couldn't refuse the feeling of being purely loved that Ashley gave him. But deep down, Marcus knew this relationship couldn't last forever. He was living a double life, and sooner or later, the truth would be exposed. What he didn't expect was that the truth would come in the most horrifying way. At the end of August, while Marcus and Ashley's relationship was deepening, another event occurred in the Johnson family. Rosa Martinez, Diana's mother, decided to move from Phoenix to live with her daughter after being fired from her cleaning job at a luxury hotel. "They said I didn't fit the facility's image," Rosa told Diana over the phone, her voice full of bitterness. 20 years of hard work, never taking a single sick day, but they fired me just because they wanted to hire younger, prettier girls. Rosa Martinez, 52, was a strong woman with Latin beauty that remained intact despite being over 50. She had bronze skin, long, glossy black hair, and deep brown eyes that held many stories. Despite going through many hardships in life, Rosa maintained her toned figure through yoga and healthy eating. Rosa's story was the story of millions of Hispanic women in America. She was born into a poor family in Mexico, moved to the U.S. at 16 with dreams of a better life. She married young to another immigrant man, had 4 children including Diana. Rosa's husband left the family when Diana was only 12, leaving Rosa alone to raise 4 children. She did every kind of work, from cleaning, cooking, to caring for the elderly, to earn money to feed and educate her children. Diana was the smartest child, and Rosa sacrificed everything so her daughter could attend college and become a nurse. When Diana married Marcus, Rosa felt proud. Her daughter had escaped the cycle of poverty, married an educated and successful man. Marcus, though black, was very respectful to Rosa, always calling her Mama and regularly asking about her health. But being fired at 52 was a major shock to Rosa. She had spent her whole life working hard, following the law, trying to integrate into American society. Yet, in the end, she was still considered unsuitable, a polite way of saying she was too old, too Mexican, in a service industry demanding a more modern image. Diana welcomed her mother with open arms. "Mom can stay here as long as she wants. We're family." Marcus, though somewhat worried about having another person in the house, still showed enthusiasm. "Mama is always welcome here. Families should stick together during hard times." Rosa moved into the living room, converted into a temporary bedroom. She brought few belongings, some clothes, family photos, and favorite Spanish books. But what Rosa brought most was pain and anger about how society had treated her. In the early days, Rosa tried to adapt to her new life. She helped Diana with housework, cooked traditional Mexican dishes, and tried not to disturb the young couple's life. But Rosa was a keen observer, and she quickly noticed something wasn't right in her daughter's marriage. Marcus frequently came home late, always had mysterious phone calls that he had to go to the balcony to take. He also seemed distant from Diana, rarely showing the natural affectionate gestures he used to. Diana, though trying to hide it, Rosa could see the worry in her daughter's eyes. "Is something wrong, honey?" Rosa asked Diana one evening when Marcus was late again. "Nothing's wrong, Mom," Diana replied, but her voice wasn't convincing. "Marcus is just under a lot of pressure at work." Rosa wasn't satisfied with this answer. She'd lived long enough to know when a man was hiding something, and with a mother's instinct, Rosa felt her daughter was in trouble. What Rosa didn't expect was that she would become part of that trouble. One evening in late August, Diana had to work an unexpected night shift covering for a sick colleague. Marcus came home to find Rosa sitting alone in the living room, reading under the warm yellow lamplight. "Mama not sleeping yet?" Marcus asked, taking off his suit jacket and loosening his tie. "You're home very late." Rosa looked up from her book. "Diana's worried." Marcus felt a bit annoyed. He already had enough pressure from work, and his relationship with Ashley didn't need additional judgment from his mother-in-law. "I have to work to support this family," he said coldly. "Maybe Mama doesn't understand the pressure of working in high tech." Rosa put down her book, looking at Marcus with sharp eyes. "I understand pressure better than you think. I worked 20 years in an environment where every day I had to prove I deserved to be there." Something in Rosa's voice made Marcus stop. He looked at her closely for the first time since she'd moved in. Rosa wasn't a typical mother-in-law. She had mature, seductive beauty, and eyes that held deep understanding about life. "Does Mama want something to drink? Wine, perhaps?" Marcus suggested, suddenly feeling the need for a drink to ease the tension. "Why not?" Rosa smiled for the first time in their conversation. Marcus opened an expensive bottle of Cabernet, poured 2 glasses and sat on the sofa a few seats away from Rosa. They drank in silence for a while, both sensing the change in the atmosphere. "You know," Rosa began, her voice becoming softer due to the wine's effect. "When I was young, I had big dreams. I wanted to become a teacher, to help children in the community." "So why didn't Mama pursue it?" Marcus asked. He also felt the wine relaxing him. "Life," Rosa laughed bitterly. "I got pregnant with Diana when I was just 19. My husband promised to support the family so I could study, but he left when Diana was 12. From then on, I only knew how to work to raise my child." Marcus felt an unexpected empathy with Rosa. They were both people who had to sacrifice dreams, who had to struggle with a society that didn't easily accept them. "I understand that feeling," Marcus said. "Every day I have to prove I'm not a token hire, The black guy hired for show. Even with my MIT degree, even with my excellent record, some people still think I don't deserve my current position. Rosa looked at Marcus with new eyes. She realized her son-in-law was also carrying similar pressures to what she'd experienced. "You and I, we're both outsiders," Rosa said, moving closer to Marcus on the sofa. "We understand each other." The distance between them gradually shortened. Marcus could smell Rosa's gentle fragrance, a mature, seductive scent, completely different from Ashley's sweet fragrance or the disinfectant smell that usually clung to Diana. "Mama," Marcus whispered, unsure what he wanted to say. "I've been lonely too long," Rosa confessed, placing her hand on Marcus's. "And you're lonely too, aren't you?" When their lips touched, Marcus felt like being struck by lightning. This wasn't Ashley's innocent kiss, but the kiss of a mature woman who knew what she wanted and how to get it. Rosa kissed Marcus with all the longing that had been suppressed for years. This wasn't just sexual desire, but also the craving to be seen by someone as a woman, not just as a mother or a worker forgotten by society. Marcus responded to the kiss with the desperation of a drowning man. In Rosa's arms, he felt completely accepted, didn't need to prove or justify anything. They made love right on the sofa, where Diana often sat reading after work shifts. It was an act both passionate and cruel, both liberating and the ultimate betrayal. Afterward, they lay in each other's arms, listening to the ocean breeze through the open window. Rosa caressed Marcus's chest, feeling his heartbeat still pounding strong. "This has to stay secret," Marcus said, his voice full of worry as reality began to set in. "Of course," Rosa replied, but in her eyes was a light that Marcus couldn't understand. Diana must never know, but deep down, both knew this wouldn't be a one-time thing. They had opened a door that couldn't be closed. The following weeks, Marcus lived in a completely surreal world. He had to balance 3 relationships: Diana, with sincere but faded love, Ashley with the passionate love of youth, and Rosa with the dangerous allure of a mature woman. Every morning, Marcus woke up next to Diana and kissed his wife's forehead before she left for her morning shift. "I love you," he said, and part of him still loved Diana, the wife who had stood by him through the most difficult years. But as soon as Diana left the house, Marcus and Rosa would find each other with fierce desire. They made love in the master bedroom, in the kitchen, even on the balcony overlooking the ocean. Rosa was like an addict who had found her fix, and so was Marcus. "You make me feel alive," Rosa whispered during one of their encounters in the bathroom, while Diana was sleeping after a night shift. In the afternoons, Marcus would meet Ashley at the small apartment in Venice Beach. The young girl always waited for him with a bright smile and simple meals she cooked with all her love. "I've been thinking about us all day," Ashley said, hugging Marcus tightly as soon as he walked through the door. "I dream about the day we can really live together." Marcus held Ashley, feeling her pure warmth. But inside him was a growing emptiness. He was living 3 different lives, and none of them was his real life. But in September, everything began to collapse. The call from Ashley came on a Tuesday morning. Marcus was at the office, preparing for an important meeting with NASA about a new spacecraft project. "Marcus," Ashley's voice trembled over the phone, "I need to see you right away. It's urgent." "Can't you tell me over the phone?" Marcus asked, checking his watch. The meeting started in 30 minutes. "No, you have to come here right now." There was something in Ashley's voice that made Marcus feel cold. He told his assistant he was suddenly ill and drove to Venice Beach at speeds exceeding the limit. Ashley opened the door with eyes red from crying. On the table was a piece of paper, medical test results. "I'm HIV positive," Ashley said, her voice breaking. "The doctor said I've been infected for at least 3 to 4 months. Marcus felt the world spinning. He collapsed into a chair, unable to believe what he'd just heard. "That's impossible," he whispered. "Are you sure you haven't been with anyone else during this time?" Ashley looked at Marcus with eyes full of pain and anger. "What do you think of me? I've only been with you for 8 months. I trusted you completely." Reality hit Marcus like a tsunami. If Ashley contracted HIV from him, that meant he was also positive. And if he was positive... "Rosa," he whispered his mother-in-law's name. "What?" Ashley asked, but Marcus had already run out the door. Marcus drove home in a state of panic. He needed to get tested immediately, but first, he needed to face Rosa. When he got home, he found Rosa sitting in the kitchen, reading the newspaper and drinking coffee. She looked up when she saw Marcus, her smile disappearing immediately when she saw his expression. "What's wrong?" Rosa asked. "I need to talk to Mama," Marcus said, his voice shaking. "About health." Rosa put down her coffee cup, preparing herself for the worst. Marcus told Rosa about Ashley, about her positive HIV test results. He watched all color drain from Rosa's face. "That means—" Rosa couldn't finish the sentence. "It means I might have infected Mama," Marcus completed the sentence with horrifying dread. Rosa was silent for a long time. When she spoke again, her voice was cold as ice. "And Diana? Have you slept with Diana during this time?" Marcus nodded, unable to look into Rosa's eyes. "So all three of us could be infected." Rosa stood up, pacing around the kitchen. "You've destroyed this entire family." "I didn't know," Marcus tried to justify. "I swear to Mama, I didn't know I was infected." "Didn't know?" Rosa turned around, her eyes blazing. "How many other women do you have besides me and Ashley?" Marcus didn't answer, and that silence answered for him. "Jesus Christ," Rosa whispered. "You're a monster." In the following days, both Marcus and Rosa secretly went for testing. The results only confirmed their worst fears. Both were HIV positive. "We have to tell Diana," Rosa said during a tense conversation at a coffee shop far from home. "No," Marcus immediately objected. "If we tell her, everything will fall apart. The marriage, my career, everything." "You think I care about your career?" Rosa asked bitterly. "Diana is my daughter. She needs to know so she can get tested and treated if necessary." "We can find another way," Marcus tried to persuade. "Say that Mama got infected from some medical accident, then infected me. I'll tell Diana I might have infected her." Rosa looked at Marcus with disgust. "You want me to lie to my own daughter?" "To protect her," Marcus said. "To protect all of us." But Rosa had made her decision. "Tonight, when Diana comes home, I'll tell her everything." Marcus felt desperate. He knew that if Diana learned the truth about his relationship with her mother, not only would the marriage end, but he could also face criminal prosecution for deliberately spreading HIV. "If Mama tells Diana," Marcus said threateningly, "I'll have to do something to stop it." Rosa looked at Marcus, for the first time truly afraid of the man she'd once loved. "Are you threatening me?" "I'm protecting our family," Marcus replied, but in his eyes was something cold and dangerous. That evening, Diana came home after a late shift at the hospital. She was tired, but still took time to check on her mother and husband. "How was everyone's day?" Diana asked, while taking off her nurse uniform. "Fine, honey," Rosa replied, but her voice had something unusual. Marcus watched Rosa tensely. He wasn't sure she would keep her promise not to tell Diana, and he had mentally prepared for the worst-case scenario. After dinner, Diana went upstairs to shower and prepare for sleep. Rosa and Marcus remained in the living room, tensely facing each other. "I've decided," Rosa said. "I'll tell Diana tomorrow morning when she's off work." "Mama can't do that," Marcus said, standing up and approaching Rosa. "You can't stop me," Rosa replied, but she backed away when she saw the look in Marcus's eyes. The argument escalated. Their voices grew louder, and Marcus was afraid Diana would hear. "If Mama tells Diana, I'll say that Mama seduced me," Marcus threatened. "I'll say Mama knew about her HIV status and deliberately infected me." "How dare you!" Rosa slapped Marcus. That slap seemed to trigger something dark in Marcus. He grabbed Rosa's neck, pushing her against the wall. "Don't ever do that again," he said threateningly. Rosa, despite being scared, still wouldn't give in. "I will tell Diana," she insisted. "You can't stop me." Marcus realized Rosa wouldn't change her mind. In a moment of desperation, he thought of the final solution. While Diana slept soundly upstairs, Marcus snuck into Rosa's room with a syringe of insulin he'd taken from Diana's medical bag. He knew Diana sometimes had to bring insulin home to inject diabetic patients needing home care. Rosa was sleeping, still in a tense state after the argument. Marcus injected insulin into her neck, a dose large enough to cause severe insulin shock. Rosa woke up immediately, feeling the needle's intrusion. She looked at Marcus with horrified eyes. "What have you done?" she whispered. "I'm sorry, Mama," Marcus said, but there was no real remorse in his voice. "Mama didn't leave me any other choice." Rosa tried to call Diana, but the insulin had already begun to take effect. She felt dizzy, short of breath, her heart beating abnormally fast. Marcus carried Rosa downstairs to the living room, placing her on the sofa. He sat beside her, holding Rosa's hand while she gradually lost consciousness. "I didn't want to do this," he whispered, "but Mama forced me." Rosa died within 30 minutes, unable to say her final words. Marcus looked at Rosa's body and realized he'd just crossed a line he couldn't return from. He wasn't just an adulterer, not just someone who spread HIV, but now also a murderer. But Marcus didn't feel remorse. Instead, he felt a strange liberation. Rosa had been the biggest threat to his life, and now that threat had disappeared. He needed to create a different crime scene. Marcus took a knife from the kitchen and stabbed Rosa's chest, creating wounds that looked like the result of a fight. He also inflicted some minor scratches on himself to be able to say he'd acted in self-defense. Then Marcus sat down and wrote a fake suicide note, imitating Rosa's handwriting. In the letter, Rosa confessed to killing Marcus in a fit of rage after discovering he'd infected her with HIV. But while Marcus was writing, he heard Diana's footsteps coming downstairs. "Marcus, Mom," Diana called from the stairs. "I heard some noise downstairs." Marcus panicked. He hadn't finished his cover-up plan. In desperation, he stabbed the knife into himself, aiming for a position that would cause death quickly. When Diana stepped into the living room, she saw a horrifying scene. Marcus lying on the floor with a knife stuck in his chest, and Rosa lying on the sofa with a similar wound. On the table was an incomplete letter. "Oh my God!" Diana screamed, running to check both people's conditions. Both were already dead. Diana called 911 with trembling hands, trying to describe the situation to the dispatcher. She couldn't understand what had happened in her own home. When police and ambulances arrived, they found a confusing crime scene. There were signs of a struggle, but also details that didn't match. The incomplete suicide note was particularly attention-grabbing. Detective Maria Santos was assigned to the case. With 15 years of experience in the LAPD, she'd witnessed many complex cases, but this one had particularly strange elements. "Tell me about last night," Maria said to Diana in the first interview. Diana, still in shock, recounted what she remembered. "I came home around 11 p.m. after my shift. Marcus and Mom were watching TV in the living room. Everything seemed normal." "Was there anything unusual in recent days?" Maria asked. Diana thought for a moment. "My mom seemed worried about finding a new job, and Marcus, he was under pressure at work, but nothing special." Maria took careful notes. She knew that seemingly simple cases often hid complex secrets. Examining the crime scene, Maria discovered several suspicious details. The blood stains on the floor didn't match the positions of the bodies. There were signs that the bodies had been moved after death. But what caught her attention most was the insulin smell Maria detected in the air. She requested an autopsy to learn more. The initial autopsy results clarified some things. Both Marcus and Rosa had abnormally high insulin levels in their blood, a sign of insulin shock. But only Rosa actually died from insulin shock. Marcus died from the stab wound. "What does this mean?" Diana asked when Maria informed her of the results. "It means the story is more complex than we thought," Maria replied. "We need to investigate deeper into your husband and mother's lives." Maria began looking into Marcus's history. Through colleagues at SpaceX, she learned that Marcus was an excellent employee, but recently seemed stressed and troubled. "He often received private calls," a colleague said, "and it seemed like he had personal problems." Maria also investigated Rosa. Through records at the hotel where she used to work, she discovered that Rosa was fired not just for age, but also for an accusation of inappropriate relations with customers. "Mrs. Martinez was found in a male guest's room during non-working hours," the former manager said. "We couldn't prove anything, but the situation was very suspicious." This information made Maria think of another possibility about the relationship between Marcus and Rosa. The investigation took an important turn when Maria received a call from a young woman identifying herself as Ashley Thompson. She wanted to meet police to provide information about Marcus Johnson. Maria met Ashley at a coffee shop in Santa Monica. The young girl looked tired and worried, her blue eyes having lost the clear brightness of youth. "I had a relationship with Marcus Johnson," Ashley began. "I know he's dead, and I think I need to tell the police about this." Ashley told Maria about her romantic relationship with Marcus over the past 8 months. She also revealed being infected with HIV and suspecting Marcus as the source. "I had regular HIV tests before meeting him. Results were negative," Ashley said, tears streaming down her cheeks. "I was only with him during this time." This information was like an important puzzle piece in the picture Maria was trying to complete. If Marcus had HIV and infected Ashley, had he infected anyone else? "Do you know if Marcus had any other relationships?" Maria asked. Ashley shook her head. "I thought I was the only one. He told me he was in a complicated situation and needed time to resolve it." Maria decided to test Diana for HIV, though she didn't want to hurt the woman who had already been through too much pain. Diana's HIV test results came back negative, which made Maria feel relieved but also more confused. If Marcus contracted HIV from Ashley, or vice versa, why didn't he infect his wife? "Diana," Maria asked in a private interview, "can you tell me about your marriage relationship recently?" Diana blushed, feeling uncomfortable discussing private matters. "We weren't as close as before. Marcus always said he was tired from work." "Did you suspect your husband of having an affair?" Diana was silent for a long time. "Sometimes I thought so, but I never had proof, and I trusted Marcus." Maria felt sorry for Diana, a kind woman who had been betrayed without knowing it. But there was a bigger question. If Marcus didn't infect Diana with HIV, had he infected Rosa? And if so, was that the motive for murder? To search for more evidence, Maria decided to bring the K9 unit to re-examine the crime scene. Max, a professionally trained German shepherd, could detect clues that humans might miss. Max was led into the penthouse and immediately showed interest in a specific area in Rosa's room. The dog led Maria to the wardrobe and scratched at a low drawer. "There's something here," Max's handler told Maria. "He's picking up a scent we can't detect." Maria opened the drawer and found a small box hidden carefully under layers of clothing. Inside was an empty insulin vial and a used syringe. More importantly, there was also a small diary written in Spanish. "This changes everything," Maria thought as she flipped through the diary pages. In the diary, Rosa had detailed her relationship with Marcus, starting from August. But most frightening were the final entries. "September 15th, HIV test positive. I know it's from Marcus. He knew and deliberately infected me. September 20th, Marcus threatened to kill me if I tell Diana. I must protect my daughter. September 25th, I've decided. Marcus must die before he kills me and Diana." Maria felt chilled. Rosa wasn't a victim. She was a premeditated killer. With new evidence, Maria decided to investigate Ashley Thompson more deeply. She requested to check Ashley's medical records and personal history, discovering a shocking detail. Ashley had known about her HIV status before meeting Marcus. Hospital records showed Ashley was diagnosed HIV positive in January 2023, 3 months before she first met Marcus at Whole Foods. She had been prescribed antiviral medication and regular monitoring. "Miss Thompson," Maria called Ashley, "we need to meet with you again immediately." This time, Ashley came to the police station with a completely different attitude. She was no longer the poor girl who'd been infected with HIV, but a woman with plans and calculations. "Why did you lie to us about when you contracted HIV?" Maria asked directly. Ashley was silent for a moment, then smiled coldly. "Because I wanted Marcus to pay for what he did to me." Ashley revealed the truth. She'd contracted HIV from an ex-boyfriend, but when she met Marcus, she saw an opportunity to get revenge on society, especially successful black men she believed didn't deserve their success. "I hated how everyone worshipped him," Ashley said with hateful voice. "A black guy who got into SpaceX just because of diversity policy, while I, a white girl with good grades, had to work as a cashier." Maria felt disgusted by Ashley's blatant racism. "So, you deliberately infected Marcus with HIV?" "I didn't deliberately infect him," Ashley denied. "I just didn't tell him about my condition. If he was smart enough, he would have asked about health history before having unsafe sex." With new information, Maria began connecting the puzzle pieces. 1. Ashley deliberately infected Marcus with HIV due to racist motives. 2. Marcus, unaware he was infected, passed it to Rosa. 3. Rosa discovered the truth and planned to kill Marcus. 4. Marcus discovered Rosa's plan and killed her first. But many questions remained unanswered. Why did Marcus have a relationship with his mother-in-law? And why didn't he infect Diana? Maria decided to interview colleagues at SpaceX to better understand Marcus's psychology. Marcus was very competitive, a colleague said. He always felt he had to prove himself more than others, probably because of the racial discrimination and pressure he faced. Another colleague revealed, Marcus once told me he wanted to conquer white women to prove he was worthy of them. I thought he was just joking, but now thinking back, while Maria was investigating, she received a call from Jake Morrison, a self-proclaimed private detective who had been hired by Ashley to investigate Marcus. Jake Morrison, 45, was a former LAPD officer fired in 2018 for racist behavior in a controversial arrest. Afterward, he worked as a private detective to make a living. I have information about the Johnson case, Jake said over the phone. We need to meet. At a bar in downtown LA, Jake told Maria about his investigation. Ashley Thompson hired me to investigate Marcus in September, Jake began. She said she suspected Marcus had infected her with HIV and wanted to find evidence. But actually, Ashley had known about her HIV status beforehand, Maria said. Jake nodded. Exactly. I discovered that when investigating her medical records. Ashley had been lying to me from the start. Jake continued. While following Marcus, I discovered his relationship with Rosa Martinez. I have photos of them together at various locations. Jake handed Maria a file full of photos and documents. It contained pictures showing Marcus and Rosa kissing in cars, in parks, and even on the penthouse balcony. But the strange thing is, Jake said, I had a feeling Rosa knew about my investigation, once I saw her look directly into the camera lens and smile. Maria felt confused. What do you mean? I think Rosa wanted to be discovered, Jake explained, like she was planning something and needed evidence of her relationship with Marcus. This revelation made Maria reconsider everything she thought she knew about the case. Rosa wasn't just a victim who accidentally got involved. She might have been orchestrating events from the beginning. With information from Jake, Maria decided to search Rosa's personal belongings more thoroughly. In a small bag hidden under the bed, she found an astonishing set of documents. Rosa had been investigating Marcus before she even moved in with Diana. She had detailed files about his work, income, and even his relationship with Ashley. A handwritten letter in the documents revealed Rosa's true motive. My daughter deserves a better life. Marcus Johnson is a successful man, but he doesn't deserve Diana. I will find a way to destroy this marriage and ensure Diana finds a better man. But Rosa's original plan had changed when she discovered her sexual attraction to Marcus. In another note, Rosa wrote, I didn't expect to have feelings for Marcus, but this could be advantageous. If I can control him through sex, I can better protect Diana. Maria realized Rosa had been planning from the beginning, but everything became complicated when real emotions emerged. Based on all evidence collected, Maria reconstructed what happened on the fatal night. Rosa had discovered about Ashley and about Marcus being infected with HIV. Instead of being angry about being infected, Rosa actually felt this was the final opportunity to save Diana. In their final confrontation, Rosa had threatened to reveal everything to Diana, not just about their relationship, but also about HIV and Ashley. Marcus, in desperation, had injected Rosa with insulin to kill her, but while waiting for Rosa to die, he realized Diana was about to come downstairs. In panic, Marcus decided to commit suicide to avoid facing the consequences. He stabbed himself, but before dying, he tried to write a suicide note to cover up the truth. However, Marcus died before completing the letter, leaving a crime scene full of contradictions. With all evidence in hand, Maria decided to arrest Ashley Thompson for deliberately spreading HIV and disturbing public order. Ashley Thompson, Maria said while putting handcuffs on her, you're under arrest for deliberately infecting someone with HIV virus with racist motives. Ashley didn't seem surprised. I knew this day would come, she said calmly, but I don't regret it. Marcus Johnson deserved what he got. Do you know your actions led to 2 people's deaths? Maria asked. Ashley shrugged. That was their choice. I just provided information. They decided what to do with it. Ashley's coldness made Maria shudder. She realized racism could create real monsters. The hardest part of the investigation was telling Diana the truth. Maria met Diana at a quiet coffee shop, preparing herself for the most difficult conversation of her career. "Diana," Maria began carefully, "we've discovered the truth about your husband and mother's deaths." Diana sat silently as Maria recounted the entire story, from Marcus's relationship with Ashley to HIV to the affair with Rosa, and finally to the murder and suicide. When Maria finished, Diana sat quietly for a long time. Tears streamed down her cheeks, but there was no crying. "I always knew something wasn't right," Diana finally spoke, "but I never could have imagined this." "I'm sorry," Maria said sincerely. "No one deserves to go through this." Diana looked out the window, watching normal people living their normal lives. "My mother tried to protect me," she said. "In her own way. I can't hate her for that." Ashley Thompson's trial took place after 6 months of investigation. The case attracted media attention due to its complex elements: HIV, racism, adultery, and murder. Ashley was convicted of deliberately causing serious injury with hate motives and falsifying evidence in a criminal investigation. She was sentenced to 15 years in prison. In her final statement, Ashley showed no remorse. "I don't apologize for giving Marcus Johnson a taste of discrimination. Black people like him always complain about racism, but they also get advantages that white people like me don't have." Those words caused outrage in the courtroom, but also clearly showed the mindset of a racist. The Johnson case changed Jake Morrison in a way he never expected. Witnessing the devastating consequences of racism made him reflect on his past views and actions. Jake sought out Maria after the trial. "I want to apologize," he said, "for what I did as a police officer and for how I viewed other people." "Why did you change?" Maria asked. Jake thought for a moment. "When I saw what racism can lead to, death, destruction, suffering, I realized I was wrong. Marcus Johnson may not have been perfect, but he didn't deserve what happened to him." Jake decided to take diversity training classes and became an anti-racism activist. He used his experience to educate young officers about the harm of prejudice. A year after the case, Diana decided to leave Los Angeles and move to Portland, Oregon to start a new life. She sold the Malibu penthouse and used the money to open a free clinic for the community. "I want to help people who can't access health care," Diana explained to Maria in their final call. "Maybe that's the best way to honor my mother's memory." Diana also established a charity fund to support women who are victims of domestic violence and racism. "What happened to my family was terrible," she said. "But if I can prevent similar things from happening to others, then maybe there's some meaning in all this suffering." The Johnson case became one of the most memorable cases in Maria Santos's career. She often retold this story in training courses for young officers. This case shows how racism, personal pain, and sexuality can combine to create a devastating cycle, Maria explained to trainees. Marcus Johnson started as a victim of racism, but he became a perpetrator when he tried to revenge society by seducing white women. Ashley Thompson was a victim of HIV, but she became a perpetrator when she deliberately infected others with racist motives. Rosa Martinez was a victim of ageism and workplace racism, but she became a perpetrator when she planned murder. Maria paused, looking into the young eyes of the trainees. "The most important thing we must understand is, pain and injustice never justify harming innocent people. We must break this cycle, not continue it." K-9 Max, who helped discover the crucial clue in the case, was awarded K-9 Officer of the Year by the LAPD. At the awards ceremony, Max's handler shared, "Max didn't just find physical evidence. He helped us understand that truth always leaves traces, no matter how well hidden." Max, with intelligent eyes and a happily wagging tail, didn't know he had helped bring justice to victims and solve one of the most complex cases in LAPD history. 3 years after the case, a documentary about the story was produced titled Under the California Sun, A Story of Love, Lies, and Consequences. In the film's conclusion, psychology and sociology experts analyzed the factors that led to the tragedy. Dr. Sarah Chen, psychologist. This case shows how social pressure and racism can turn ordinary people into perpetrators. Marcus felt he needed to prove himself in a racist society, and this led to devastating decisions. Professor David Rodriguez, sociologist. Rosa Martinez represents millions of immigrant women who have been forgotten and discriminated against by American society. However, her pain doesn't justify violent actions. Dr. Michael Washington, HIV/AIDS specialist. This case also highlights the issue of HIV stigma. Ashley used HIV as a weapon, which is not only cruel but also increases stigma against the HIV community. Diana Johnson Martinez, she had returned to her maiden name, was now director of a community clinic network in the Pacific Northwest. She had married a Vietnamese-American doctor, and they had a young daughter. Diana never forgot her past, but she had learned to live with it and turn it into motivation to help others. Ashley Thompson was serving her sentence at California Institution for Women. She participated in rehabilitation programs and gradually changed her views on racism. Ashley had written an apology letter to Diana, though she knew some mistakes could never be forgiven. Jake Morrison had become a respected speaker in diversity training courses for police forces. He often said, "I was once part of the problem, but now I try to be part of the solution." Detective Maria Santos was promoted to lieutenant and specialized in hate crime cases. She often used the Johnson case as a prime example of how prejudice and racism can lead to tragic consequences. K9 Max had retired after 8 years of service and was living happily with his handler's family. Occasionally, Max was invited to schools to educate children about the role of working dogs in maintaining community safety. The story, Secrets Under the California Sun, is a painful reminder of how racism, personal pain, and devastating choices can create a cycle of violence and suffering. Marcus Johnson, Ashley Thompson, and Rosa Martinez all began as victims of social injustice. But instead of finding ways to heal and break that cycle, they chose revenge, leading to destruction not only of their own lives, but also of innocent people around them. The most important thing we can learn from this tragedy is, pain and injustice never justify harming others. True justice comes from healing, not revenge. We must have the courage to break cycles of hatred instead of perpetuating them. Only when we learn to see each other as equally valuable human beings, transcending skin color, origin, or circumstances, can tragedies like the Johnson case be prevented. And perhaps that is the most important legacy those lost in this story can leave. A warning and a call to action to create a more just and compassionate society.